Hey, good evening. Buenas tardes. Cualitonali. It's really beautiful to see familiar faces. And for those who don't know me, my name is Sewa Yuli. I am currently in Kumi Island, also known as San Diego, California. And I just want to start with just saying thank you, to Creator for another day of life, another breath, and this wonderful opportunity to share this space with you all. And thank you so much, Rhonda, also for just rooting for me and just being that person who motivates me and inspires me and pushes me to be my best self all the time. So thank you. So I just wanted to just start with introductions or introducing myself. I wish I could have everyone introduce themselves and get to know you, all you beautiful faces. And yeah, my name is Sewa, and my family comes from Michoacan and Sonora, Mexico. Both of my parents immigrated from Mexico, and they ended up in the same place in California, working in the agriculture. And yeah, they both came from agriculture background, and they ended up in Salinas, California, and that's where I was born. And Salinas is a place where let me catch my breath here because there's just a lot right now. Yeah, Salinas is a place where it's kind of like a war zone. I grew up in there was just a lot of gangs. There's a lot of violence and poverty, and my parents did the best that they could to support us, but the way that I grew up was kind of learning how to survive on my own. And so yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit of that background and also share, kind of segue into what brought me into where I am now and the work that I do and my passions and my love and the medicine. And I want to share a little story. I thought it was important to share because I've shared it a few times, and I think every time I share it, it just kind of reminds me and takes me back and fills up my heart to why I do the work that I do now. And so when I was younger, my mom, she would send me away sometimes with my grandmother in Mexico, just kind of to get away because it was rough for me growing up the way that I did. And my nana Delina, she was from Sonora. She would take us to Mexico, and the last time that I remember that she took us, it was kind of a mission. We went from Salinas and got dropped off at the border. And from the border, we took a bus to the capital of Sonora, Hermosillo. From Hermosillo, we took another bus. It's a smaller bus. It's like the buses like that people like from the little small pueblos transport. And from that station went to this other pueblo where my family also has a house called Tepache, Sonora. And from Tepache, Sonora, we had to hitchhike. And since everyone kind of knows each other there in those pueblitos, it wasn't like kind of a big thing. You just the next person who's going to the next. So we had to go from this pueblo called Tepache to La Rancheria. And from La Rancheria, it's a small little community, probably like 10 families. And from there, my grandma had like a little hut, and we had some horses. So we'd get to La Rancheria, and it was kind of like a pit stop, and we'd buy our essentials like sugar, rice, coffee, what else, beans and whatnot. And so my grandma had her horses there and her donkeys. And we went, it was me, my sister, and my cousin, my tata, my nana, and my uncle. And so we all got on, me and my sisters got on a horse, and my nana, my tata were walking, and the donkeys were full of all our stuff, just like our clothes, all our groceries, and all the essential things that we needed. And from there, it was like 2 hours to get from La Rancheria to our ranch, to my grandparents' ranch. And so I remember going, it was like, I don't know, it was such an adventure, you know. It was like we experienced so many different things in those 2 hours. And, you know, our grandparents would stop and we'd like look at stuff and just there was water to remember. We played in the water, and then we got back on our horses and we started to go back on our quest to the ranch. And then it was during the monsoon season in Sonora, so those waters are pretty pretty intense. And so it started raining, and so the road from where we're at is we're going through all the arroyo, and the water started to rise really high. And next thing you know, it's like at like the horse's knee, and I was so scared, and I was praying so hard. I was like, Mom, I swear I'm gonna be good. I'm never gonna do this. I'm never gonna do that. And I was so scared. And then there was a lightning. There was like this. The lightning was so scary. I'd never experienced that. And I remember as we were going, there was one lightning that hit. Like it was about like 3 feet away. And it terrified me. It was really scary. And so we finally made it to the ranch. And it was quite an experience, you know, just to be there with my grandma. And we were there for about 3 months. And in those 3 months, you know, I think every like maybe 5 weeks, my tata would go into town. He would go into town to go get all the essentials, like the things we would run out of. And so my grandpa, I love my grandpa, but he was an alcoholic. And the last time that he had went to get the essentials, he didn't come back. And we were waiting around for the food. You know, we ran out of everything. We had no flour. My grandma would make tortilla. She would make cheese and, you know, just beans, but we had no beans, no rice, no sugar, no coffee. And it was like we were completely out of everything. And all the things that we had were all the wild things. So my grandma would take us foraging to get, because we were that hungry, we had to eat whatever was around. And so we found quelites. I don't know how to say quelites in English, but if someone could put it on the chat box. And purslane, verdolagas, because it was during the raining season, so there was like verdolagas everywhere. And so we ate that for like 3 days, and I was just cheese and verdolagas and quelites. You know, we had nothing else. And I was just tired of eating it. And I remember going to my grandma's little hut and looking. I was like, there has to be like a can of tuna or something around here. And I was looking for it, and I didn't find anything. And I kept looking, and finally I found this box. And underneath all this like rubbish, like I found a pack of old tostadas, like these like old tortillas. And I was so hungry, and I was like, God, I just can't eat any more verdolagas or quelites. And then I ate it. I ate one of the tostadas, and it was so rancid. It was just, it was horrible, but I still ate it because I was so hungry. I wanted to do something different. And I think I just had a few bites, and that was it. And then, of course, soon enough, I got food poisoning, and I was really sick. I was really, really sick, and there goes my nana trying to take care of me. And of course, like 2 hours later, after I'm like sitting there, my grandpa comes back with all the food after like 4 days of being gone. And I couldn't even eat. I couldn't eat anything. It was pretty bad. But I'm sharing this because that story, that humbled me like for the rest of my life. Like that experience was, you know, I came back to the States, and I was like not the same. I was 9 years old when that happened, and it was not the same. You know, I knew all the hard work and labor that goes in, and the sacrifice, and just, you know, how humble like my grandparents lived with so little, you know. And you know, I learned to really appreciate, you know, my family and what they did, and also like all the privilege that I had living in the States. You know, we had so much abundance. So that always stayed with me all the time. It always stayed with me. And with that, you know, I think I learned to appreciate, you know, my mom, and I would watch her cook, and I appreciated food so much. From that moment, from that time, from that experience, like like just everything, it changed for me. And so my mom not being around, kind of fast forward, my mom kind of not being around because they were always working in the, in the fields, and at home, I learned to kind of sustain myself. Had to learn how to cook because my mom, wasn't around. And so I think the kitchen became kind of like a place of refuge, because there was always so much violence around. There was just a lot of things happening either in my home or outside of my home. And I had a lot of siblings. I was, middle child of five, siblings. And I found that peace and serenity. And I always like just thought of my nana, like the thought of her and her stories and just the ranch is just like stuck with me. And I learned to, I don't know, I just growing up, it was just a thing for me. And as I got older, I learned to have like a relationship with these foods. I could feel like my grandma's stories. I could feel like even in the flavors as I was cooking, and soon enough, I just was, everything was centered around that, was like those feelings. It was like the only place that felt safe for me. It never felt safe anywhere. And to me, so I had to go to that place of safety. And it was, sorry, I'm getting almost. Yeah, it was just a really like a really beautiful place for me, to share my love and to feel, just to feel that warmth again, just to go back to that feeling again. And I took that with me, always. And I grew a love and a passion for and an appreciation for the ways that we nurture people through food, and the way that we share our love. And then the food started to talk to me. And I started to like really, there was not, my grandparents passed away, and I just had so many questions, and I had so many, like I just wanted to know more. And then I realized that a lot of these things and recipes started to come to me, like just for me being in the kitchen, being, just, oh, like to say I'm making a soup, and like, oh, we'll need some of this and that. And like next thing you know, wow, this just tastes like my nana's. And I learned to do it on my own, like, and or even sometimes calling my mom too. My mom was a huge resource for me. And so, yeah, so you just, from that to now, I have a relationship. I have this beautiful ceremony, that I share here in my home, in my kitchen. I'm not at home right now, but in my home and in my kitchen, that I really try to embody all those teachings and that love that my nana and my mother had given me. I try to share that, with all the people that I come across, and I have the privilege to cook for. And so, I started going to ceremony and got really in touch, with our traditional ways. And when I started to go to ceremonies, I would hear, the elders and the ceremonial leaders talk about all these elements, and I would hear about it in the danza mexica, like all the, these elements that we're trying to, or nature that we're trying to mimic, and that we're trying to be in sync with. And I realized that all those same teachings and the sync was, that we were in sync with, are also in the kitchen. We're doing the same thing. The fire, the water, all of it's right there. And, I would be cooking, and I would start to have all these downloads. And in those downloads, one time, I was like salting my food, and I had the salt, in my hands, and I was like, yeah. And I'm, I've always been into crystals, and I was like, well, these are crystals. These are crystals, yeah. And I just had the instinct to pray with it, and put those thoughts, into the food. then, you know, they came to me, you know, like this salt comes from the ocean, and the ocean is moved by the moon. I was like, wow, this is super cosmic. And the salt, they're like, these are crystals, and crystals are like hard drives, you know, the crystals hold information, you know. And so, wow, like here I am, you know, just with this little salt, you know, that comes from the ocean, that's moved by the moon, and that I get to put all those beautiful thoughts and prayers, you know, to my relatives. Wow, that's so beautiful, you know. And I just felt it was wonderful. That feeling was wonderful, and I just always, you know, think, you know, I feel so thankful for that day that you know, I had the privilege to really acknowledge that. And so I started to always pray with my salt, and put that medicine into the food, and you could see it. And then I could see, I studied people and the way that the food, they would feel with the food, and oh, it's so, not just that it's so yummy, but like it feels good, like wow, like it was so nourishing, and that really, that good feeling, you know. And so that I realized that what we're doing in the kitchen is, it's a ceremony. It's like what we're doing in all these other ceremonies, you know, it's the same thing. And I was like, wow, our grandmas and, you know, all our ancestors, all our people that, you know, that have taken that place, you know, and for that love in the kitchen. Yeah, we've been doing it for so long, you know. It just, I realize it doesn't often get acknowledged as that, you know. But that's what we're doing in there, you know. We're not, sometimes, you know, we're in a hurry and we're just putting things, you know, together, but it always comes from the heart. Like even just subconsciously, we're putting that intention into the food like that. And so then, you know, before I started Mi Xantico, when it was, you know, my life path and my business, you know, I realized that that's what I wanted to do. I was like, that was the direction that I wanted to go, because that's all I knew how to do. I was like, well, I don't know, I'm not good at a lot of things, but you know, the only thing I feel confident is that I know that this made me feel good as a kid, and I want to share that with everybody. I want to give that feeling that when my nana would make me the caldito, like that feeling, I want to share that with other people, you know. And so that's how I came about to really to have those feelings of you know, of passion and love to our food, you know, really heal people through that it's just simple, right? It's just simple. It's so simple, like those that nurturing feeling that we get from our mothers and the grandmas. And you know, and I don't want to discredit any of our, maybe our grandpas and our dads too, you know, or people. And so yeah, I wanted to just share that story. It's an important story for me of how, you know, I came about to what I do now, and what kind of made me, you know, and really humbled me, and I feel grateful. And I just wanted to acknowledge my grandma. Her name's Adelina Medina, and my mother's Dora Portela, and my paternal grandma is Maria Moreno. And I was, you know, I've been grateful enough to have, you know, these amazing grandmas that shared a lot of they were both amazing cooks, and they were just always in the kitchen all the time. And that's just kind of been the story of me, always in the kitchen. And kitchen has just been my refuge, my place of my sanctuary, my own, like my safe place. It's my safe place. It's where like no one could, I feel like it's so protected, like no one could really do anything, you know. It's like this little magical bubble that I put myself in. And I don't know why I'm so emotional right now. But it feels good. I'm just, you know, I didn't want to have a script or anything. I didn't want to write anything down. I just wanted to speak from my heart. You know, I'm not a teacher. I'm just me, you know, Sewa, a mom. It's like to cook and share, you know, a little bit of my story and background, and share a little bit of some recipes. I do want to open it up to folks and be a little bit more interactive, and you know, and also hear some someone else's story too, if possible. But yeah, that's me.
Can you talk more about a little bit about what you have planned for the future, or like what we can expect, or from you coming next, your future plans, or maybe I know you had mentioned in some of your posts making some recipes and sharing those recipes with everybody. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that for us?
Thank you. Well, what I'm doing, did you mean what we're doing today or with in general?
Oh, just like in general, like what should we expect from Mi Xantico in the future? Like what are your future plans, and yeah, what we have to look forward to.
Thank you. Right now I'm working on a recipe book, and it's taken me years to finally, like, okay, I'm gonna do it. You know, I think I've always had you know, my own just insecurities, you know, of you know, just like, oh, how am I gonna put this together? And you know, I don't really have any recipes written down. I just cook, and my grandma and both my grandmas and my mother, and they kind of just, like, you know, like a lot of mothers, oh, just put a little bit of this and that, and there's no measurement. So that's kind of how I learned to cook, kind of intuitively. And so when people would ask me for recipes, I'm like, oh man, and like, I don't know. It would take me a while, like, to sit there, like, oh well, how much is this pinch, like what teaspoon, and kind of guess. And so from the first time I ever posted food on my social media years ago, then I started to have more people like requesting recipes, and then I was like, okay, well, I have to write some of these recipes down, and it's taken me a long time, but I finally, you know, feel really good about doing it. I feel you know, it feels good in my heart, and it's not because I don't want to share. It's just really was about like logistical things, and like having to really sit there and write these recipes down. So yeah, so yes, I'm coming up with this book, and I'm really excited about it because I'm not just going to share recipes, but there's pictures and stories, and also, you know, just encouraging other people to really just kind of, you know, just playing around with food. You know, it's just like it's that trial and error, you know, that's how we learn. And so yeah, that's something that Mi Xantico is doing, and I'm also working on, because of the times that we're in right now, doing a meal prep services that's in process right now. And yeah, that's for now. That's like, I'm starting small, you know, small baby steps, you know, smaller vision. You know, I've always been have big visions, but you know, right now I'm learning to just, you know, one little thing at a time. And yes, and I'm going to be sharing a atole recipe towards the end. Yeah.
Feel free to share however you like, but I know that I'm personally excited and just wanting to spend some time focusing on how you bridge these worlds of food and your birth work, and, you know, of just bringing that, if we can just remember how to care for our own with all of these ancestral foods, in just how much that will impact the health and well-being and healing and everything that is happening to families, especially in their postpartum, but in all ways. And so, you know, however you would like to share of your stories as a birthing person, as a person who's moving into midwifery, and, you know, how you're going to carry, you know, the stories you've shared already into your work. I would personally love to hear that.
Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you. Yes, well, I'll share a story of something that came to me a few years ago that made the work that I'm doing now so much more significant. And maybe some of you might have heard this story before. It's like a corn creation story. In Mexico, we have quite a few, and I'll just give like an abbreviated version. I like telling the story to kids and being super, animated, but I'll give you just a little short story. So there was a time, that our ancestors were going through like drought and hunger, and there was no food. There was no food, nothing growing, and there was chaos, and people were dying. And so the folks, the people invoke Quetzalcoatl. They were praying for something, and Quetzalcoatl came up and and decided to help the people. And Quetzalcoatl knew of this sacred mountain and this place, where there was seed keepers. And so he turned himself into a little red ant, because the seed keepers were the ants. So he went up into this mountain to where these ants were, and he finally found them and asked them, for support. That I need to help the humans, the people. These people are dying, and there's no, they have no food, and their babies dying. And so the ants weren't budging. They're like, no, we can't give you these seeds. We know that if we give you these seeds, what's gonna happen? And Quetzalcoatl was like, no, you don't, like insisting that they have those seeds to help the people. So finally, Quetzalcoatl, being the energy that he was, he convinced the ants to give him the seeds, and he knew that the humans had to make like this sacred pact, like this marriage, this sacred marriage with these seeds. And so finally, Quetzalcoatl took the seeds back, and everything started, to grow. The people started to learn the seeds. The corn was teaching these people like how to sync with nature, how to pay attention to the seasons and to the cosmos, and they grew this appreciation, to nature. And so these seeds, really they hold a lot of these instructions, these original instructions that we talk about. These seeds hold like stories of our cosmology and stories of our earth here. So I really, so these seeds, they're so important, right? And so fast forward, to the times now, like these seeds, now we have GMOs. We have GMOs. So if these our original seeds are that the ones that hold these original instructions, and they teach us how to be in sync with nature. They help us remember who we are and where we come from. So I was like, oh my God, well, GMO seeds is like the opposite. It's like this, like they erases like who we are. It's genetically modifying us. It's changing us. And from that moment that really it sunk in, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's like I mean, there's so many different types of genocides that are happening, right? But that one just really, it really hit me hard, and especially because of, what I do and in cooking. So I knew that when I would feed people and I would cook, that I was very intentional about using certain ingredients, certain things, with the intention, especially in postpartum, when a mother after birth, like, oh yes, the first thing I'm going to feed her is some atole, some corn. Anything with our corn, with those intentions and those prayers, to activating that cellular memory, helping us, for that baby, even if it's just that one time that mom and that baby are going to have that corn. And from then on, it has been something that I have integrated in all, and not just in postpartum, like just for all folks. I am a birth worker, and so I do emphasize a lot on birthing people, but it's it's everywhere. When I go to ceremony, when I go to even my family's house, even people that are not in ceremony, like, you know, I really put that intention of using these foods with those prayers, and hoping that those prayers, you know, work their magic, you know, even at that one time to help them, you know, to help us remember. And really, it's really to help us remember to be in tune with nature, with earth, and to appreciate, you know, this earth. And yeah, and so that's just how I've really really, you know, that my intentions all the times with everything that I do, even if it's for people like weddings, and I've catered for different events, I always pray with my food. I burn medicine. I sing all the time. You know, that famous, I forget his name, that famous Japanese, or I'm not sure if he's Japanese or Chinese, so forgive me for if I'm mistaken that, but he did he was like, I forgot, I'm trying to remember, but he had all the water. Remember, he had all the water, and he was like speaking into the water, and so the molecules like changed with the vibration of, like, you know, he was saying, like, you know, really like bad things and real bad things. So it changed the molecular structure of the water. So like that always stuck to me. So I always thought, like, well, if I sing to this food, and if I share these prayers and put this vibration, that it will change the alchemy of the food. And because we can't always afford to have like organic food or something that's grown locally, you know, like I can't, you know, I buy my stuff at Food City or Super or other places where, you know, there is GMO food, you know. And as much as I try to eat, you know, as like organic as possible, I can't always. So I really have a lot of faith in our traditions, and the power of prayer, the power of those intentions, and using our those sacred smokes that we have, our smudge, you know, we all have our different, you know, smudges that we use. And that's just something that I really use all the time, you know, put those prayers in, and that intention. So I hope that answers your question, Rhonda. I don't know, I kind of went all over the place with that, but this is what's coming up for me.
Hi, Sewa. I am here accompanying from Peru, so thank you for your time. I'm also a doula, and I work here with a traditional Quechua midwife. And I'm curious a little bit about your postpartum work, because I saw on the flyer it said like your Tradiciones de Mexico in postpartum. And now that we're talking about food, like maybe you could talk a little bit about your postpartum traditions, and then also maybe add in like what kind of food. I mean, you already mentioned corn, but what are some of the traditional dishes that you guys use in postpartum time for your women? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Haley from Cusco. Well, and there's different in Mexico, you know, there's so many different regions, and we have so many different traditions within just like in Mexico. I usually just use what I learned from my grandmas and my mom, what we use. And now like I've adopted other, you know, like dishes that I've learned from other you know, birth workers around. For me, it's always like the atoles are very important. Warming food is always important. So I'm always gonna load up my atoles with, you know, canela and ajonjolí, sesame, or cardamom. You know, some of these things are not all. Some of these things are traditional. Doesn't necessarily have to be really that ancestral. That some of the things, you know, also have like European influence as well. You know, or not necessarily European, but just people that immigrated or came, you know, to Mexico. In my postpartum work, that's just always like what I do in soups, broths, and if it's plant-based, or we have plant-based people, you know, just a high alkaline, and, you know, sweet potatoes and things that are not very, like spicy or gonna make greasy. You know, you want things that are easy to digest. You know, very nourishing, warming foods. And if people are do that are open to like bone broth, bone broth is something that I'm really, really like, you know, big on, and that has really supported me. So I like to use things that have helped me myself. The bone broth, I use different herbs sometimes, you know, but for the most part, a lot of vegetables, you know, and oats. I like to do overnight oats with cinnamon and lots of berries, lots of berries. That's really like another one that's really easy to make. But yeah, and that's the postpartum time is like for us, you know, in Mexico is like super important. The cuarentena. I don't know if you've heard of that, you know, time period, but that's that cuarentena, that time frame is like really tells of what your rest of even your life is gonna be like. You know, your body, you know, your mental health. You know, that support those 40 days when you are supported and taken care of, and it can make a huge difference in your life.
Do you guys have like a traditional postpartum like rebozo or a wrap or something that you guys do to help close the body?
Mm-hmm. We do. Yeah. I don't want to go into. I mean, I can go into the rebozo thing, but I really don't. I like don't want to like focus a lot on that. But yeah, we do. We do the rebozo as a very one of the key important things to do during our cuarentena or cerrada.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Before we go into, we're gonna do a demo, a tole demo, but I'd love to answer more questions. I'm super open.
I have a question. This is Natalie. Hi, Sewa. Thank you for hosting this. Yeah, I think from my perspective, sorry, there's a little bit of construction happening around. Just ignore that. But I guess from somebody who's coming from a lineage of like great cooks in the family and like that being a very like feminine domain to being first generation and just witnessing that total like switch from like what we wouldn't even call it organic. It was just like you're eating mostly veggies and plant-based diet because meat is not affordable, one, and two being that yeah, I just felt like in my upbringing, because I was closer to my abuelitas, I had a more diverse diet. And as I became independent and sourcing ingredients and knowing which recipes I had was really up to me. It just most of the diet then became like wheat centered, sugar centered, and that has its adverse effects. And so I guess I'm not even speaking, but like screaming from a generation that has suffered greatly in health symptoms due to that kind of devaluing. And I know that I think I saw somebody post once that if you ask children to identify plants, they don't know what plants kind of are around them. But if you ask them to identify brands or fast food chains, like it's quick, right?
Oh yeah.
So I'm coming from a generation where there's a high expectation of like retaining that knowledge and wisdom, but also distance creates a little bit of a barrier for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I find the biggest challenge is when I'm at the store, like knowing what are the essentials I need to have, how can I limit store runs, especially right now during COVID times, right? And so I think that as a young adult, like I'm really working through and struggling with a lot of trauma, you know, a lot of emotional, psychological trauma. And so I keep getting the message that, like, go back to the foods, like, tap in with the foods, because if your body's not right, your mind and your spirit can't be right. So I'm in this place where I'm like, I haven't really cooked much of my life. I want to, but when I do it, it's like something takes over, like I know how to do it. So I guess I'm just really looking for that guidance. And I think a lot about like food and indigenous sovereignty is gonna be like the more we can encourage not just younger generations, because it's like multi-generational, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
to really tap in. So I don't know the question in there. I guess it's like the question is more of like help Yeah, and when I think of like, okay, who do I know that's like tapped in, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I already know. So yeah, just if you want to speak on that, for guidance.
Ooh. Mm. Well, I mean, I can only speak on my own personal experience, because I know some people, there's generations that there's a huge disconnect, or so much assimilation. I was, although there was like a lot of like poverty and humility in the ways that I grew up, but I was also very privileged to still see and witness and experience, what I did when I was younger. And that has like taught me how to survive. I've been in like that survival mode of like, like yo no me voy a morir de hambre. I'm not gonna die of hunger. I know because I saw my parents and my mom and my grandmas like struggle, and I've seen them, I've experienced it, like not have, my mom not having any money to buy anything. And so making something happen out of nothing, making my mom going to the food bank to get boxes of food, and then making like amazing food with what she had, watching her do that was like, oh my God, amazing. And so maybe some of it wasn't so nutritious, but it fed us, and it taught us some values and some resilience. And I think like, now I see the younger generations. Now I'm like with my son, sometimes I catch myself like, oh, if you only knew what it was like, you have everything, at your ear, and you have your own private personal chef. But I think, I don't know if I can give much advice, but I think that like it it it's not one day that we're gonna just learn, like, oh well, I'm gonna learn all this food, it's like really taking that, it's about, self-love, like really well. And it's about like, it is resistance, because when we start understanding how all the systems within systems with white supremacy and all the chain of all the bullshit, right? Like it gives you, for me at least, it's motivated me to want to eat things and put things in my body that I know that, well, if shit goes down, I was like, I need to be strong, or I know it's different for everybody, like I'm speaking from just my own personal experience and privilege, that is just, it's really comes with time. I think that like learning that survival, and just and like just you just gotta go to this, you're gonna go grocery shopping, and you're gonna just get whatever you feel that you need, and then it's some things are gonna work, or some things are gonna go bad, and you're not gonna use them. But I think that's the only way. I mean, I hope that's answering your question.
Yes, I think that the expectation is like, okay, you're gonna learn to cook, you're gonna have all these things, and I think it's similar to gardening. You're gonna plant stuff, and some of them are gonna die.
Yeah, I know. It's just, yeah, it's definitely not like that. It's definitely, it just takes time, and building those relationships. That's like how we do with plants. When you go, there's a lot of herbal courses out there, and they're teaching you like talk to the plants, and each plant has a spirit, and so does each vegetable. Each, ingredients and herbs that we put into our food, so then you establish these relationships with the food, like all the textures, the smells, and how it feels when you eat it. How does it feel? Like how does it feel when you eat it? Like how does your body respond to it? And so you start taking, notes of how that is, until you know what feels good, and what doesn't feel good. You already know that you eat hot Cheetos and Takis that they're good in the moment, but shit. And so, normal, if you eat like a kind of a, I don't want to say balanced diet, but like, you're going to eat some veggies, you eat some brown rice, or, something like that you're going to feel more light, and you're going to see it. You're not going to have that fogginess, you're not supposed to be feeling like that lethargic feeling, that sluggish, so you eat these foods, you know, that they're going to make you feel good. So you just, you know, you just start taking notes and start paying attention to how your body responds to all these things. And then you'll slowly but surely start to adapt and create your own regimen.
I also just want to add, one of my favorite groups is, tribal sovereignty is food sovereignty, or maybe it's the other way around. But my friend Beata, who I hope to have on here eventually, she runs the Healing Oasis Garden and works with Sewa Women United in New Mexico. And she was quoted to just say, what ultimately gives us our freedom is the ability to feed ourselves. And I saw that just a couple days ago, and it just kind of stopped me in my tracks, you know? Resistance and sovereignty is so dependent on being able to feed ourselves in all of these ways, whether it's, you know, being our own midwives, or being our own healers, or being our own, you know, people who just take care of each other. That is the ultimate act of resistance, and feeding ourselves is at the center of it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rhonda, for sharing that. Yeah. And I think that, like, for me, that I discovered that, you know, I was like, well, I don't have control of anything happening out there, you know, as much as, you know, when I was younger, I was an activist, and I was like, ah, la revolución, we're going to do this and that. And, you know, I think I got really jaded, and I was like, I realized that, wow, the only thing that I really have control over is just like really what I put in my body. And so what makes me feel good. And that's where a lot of the teachings and that wisdom and those downloads came. They were in the kitchen. And I used to think, you know, I was like, when I was younger, you know, it's like, oh man, like, oh, they expect us to be in the kitchen and cleaning, and I don't want to be one of those, you know, those people, you know, and just like, you know, cooking and cleaning, you know. And then I realized that how, and going to all these ceremonies, and I was like, why the heck, where's the men? How come they don't help, you know, cook? And why are we the ones cooking and cleaning? And I realized how powerful the kitchen work was, and that's where, like, you know, all the grandmas were dropping the knowledge, and the aunties and the chisme, like, it was. Then I was like, well, it's kind of fun being here, and it's powerful, and that's how we heal our babies. That's how we heal our relatives. You know, that some people, you know, it's hard to be physically affectionate, or sometimes we don't know how to be affectionate, but we can give that love to that food, and then give that food to someone, and they're receiving that love through that food. And that's what I think that I've really learned to love so much, the space in the kitchen, and really actually empower myself. And I think it's like a really powerful place to be. You know, it's not a degrading place. I'm not ashamed of it. It doesn't make me lesser than, you know, anyone else. And, you know, what are the men are doing, you know, I'm like, no, this is, for me at least, you know, I speak for myself, that it's a place, you know, like I said, in my safe place, where I show love, where the healing happens, where I get to, you know, even on a you know, cellular level, like just really, like, you know, share that vibration, you know, via the food. Anybody want to share anything before we're gonna do this atole demo? But I'm more than happy to answer any more questions or reflections or any, you know, anything like that. So I'm gonna introduce a very special person that is here helping me, and that's gonna help me do this atole demo. And so we're gonna, you know, we're just gonna get this iPad and then kind of move it around a little bit. So forgive us, you know, if it seems a little, you know, chaotic. But this is my friend with the mom and Aunties.
I'm Becky.
Do you want to share anything, Becky, before we start?
Hi. You know, I just wanted to say something about the memories of food. I do a Sunday breakfast for my family, where everybody comes over, my brothers, my sisters, my nieces, my nephews, the little ones. And I do this because I want the kids to remember me, that when they eat papas in a certain way, or frijoles in a certain way that I cook them, when I'm gone, they're going to say, I remember my tia cooked like this for me. And I think that that's one of the biggest blessings in what we give in that food and that love that we give in that food is it's a memory. You know, we're giving a memory that they're going to, a smell, a taste is going to bring it all back. And postpartum, when a baby's born and you're taking care of the mom and the baby, and even the baby can smell the food that the mom's eating or whatever, it's just such a beautiful blessing, you know, and an honor to be able to do that. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to share.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It's beautiful. We are going to do an oatmeal and sesame atole. The oatmeal atole, I kind of grew up with this my whole life since I was a baby. My grandma always had it at home. I went over to my grandma's house. She lived down the street from us, my paternal grandmother, and she always un atolito all the time. That's like, you know, you came to her house and, you know, she always had it. So, and it was also really important to give it to postpartum people because it also helped with to help produce milk and what else? Yeah, it's just a beautiful, warming, you know, treat for mom. And then the sesame is really good for your bones and digestion. So that was another added ingredient into the atole. So what we have in here, we have 2 cups. Here we go. We have 2 cups. It's cold now. So there's 2 cups of water, and we put 3 cinnamon sticks, and yeah, so 2, and then maybe a piece of piloncillo. Let me see. Can you bring a piece over here? It's like Mexican brown sugar.
Is this enough or too much?
No, I already put some in there.
Okay.
So I melted it already. So this is a piloncillo or panela, they call it some places in South America. You can sweeten it with honey or maple syrup, maple sugar, stevia, whatever, you know, whatever your preference is. I'm using piloncillo because this is how my abuelita would make it. So I usually make 2 cups of cinnamon tea, and then I chill it because you don't want it to get clumpy. So you want everything to be cold when you put everything in there. Yeah, you know. And then you're gonna add 4 cups. So I use 2 cups. So in total, it's gonna be 6 cups of liquid. So it's 2 cups of water that make the cinnamon tea, and then you could use milk, oat milk, whatever milk or liquid that you want to use. So we're gonna use 4 cups. And then we're gonna put it back on the fire, and then quickly we're gonna put our 3 tablespoons of sesame seeds, and then 1 cup of oats, and I put them in my Vitamix, and I make it into like just like a meal here. So it's nice and fine. And then I throw it all in here, and then I quickly I use my molinillo, or you can use a whisk. And so you stir it like really fast, and you have to stay attentive to it because it could, you know, stick or burn easily. So atole is something that you want to stay mixing. But yeah, you want it at like medium heat. You don't want to do it too high because it gets really clumpy. So here we are, just, you know, stirring our atole. All right. It smells so good already. The cinnamon is already so aromatic. So yeah, so this is when I start putting my prayers in, when I'm stirring. I like to use the molinillo. Traditionally, it's used for chocolate, but I like to use like more earthy stuff versus metal or plastic, because these things they're like conduits, you know. Like, so when we're putting, you know, our prayers or vessels in here, for me it feels like that. It feels like it's just an extension. These tools are like an extension of me, and they're here putting all those good thoughts and those prayers. I think about mom or baby or any relatives that I'm making this for. I start to put those thoughts in here to make it extra beautiful and delicious. So you keep stirring, and you're gonna stir. Some people like it more thick, and so if you do, then you can add a little bit more oats in there. This has been like the recipe that's kind of worked with me. The consistency is not too thick, it's not too liquidy, it's enough to like sip on a cup. And And yeah, so you just stir until it gets cooked. It takes maybe about 15 to 20 minutes. Jackie's gonna be finishing the atole here.
Thank you for sharing and for all of your stories and just your beauty. I'm appreciating it. I'm wondering if you prefer to use like avena, to use the meal, or to use the maize, depending on like if it's situational. For example, if someone experiences blood loss during birth, like hemorrhaging, or maybe susto, or like if there's a specific grain that you would then prefer to use over the other.
I can't say I've been in that situation, but I always use both. I always use both. I always have, to me, I made it kind of a pact with that corn, that's kind of been to always like have that atole. But the oatmeal one is really something that I learned from my abuelita, and so I usually always have both. But if I don't have corn, but I usually do, I will use just avena. But I think they're both important. At least the oatmeal helps for sure. And like usually the whole family has it. If I make a big part of it, because then the whole family gets to enjoy it. And it's just like it's just that good feeling. Brings that good feeling. So yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sewa, can you hear me okay?
Yes, Monica, I can hear you.
Hi. So I'm wondering if in your kitchen, besides using foods to cure and create intention for internal emotion and healing, if you're also using anything topically?
Yeah, I do, actually. For the work that I do, I have my own little apothecary that I make for myself. I don't, sometimes I gift it, but I don't sell it, but I make my own blends of things that are my allies.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have one that's like my main medicine, and that I carry it with me, and it's what I use with people's permission, because it has our traditional medicines in it, and I like to use it, and particularly for people of like our lineage or people that come from Mexico, because that's what feels right for me, because a lot of these medicines have been exploited, and so I take really good care of it. But I use peyote is one of the things, and cocotillo flowers, and estafiate mugwort is a huge ally. Those a lot of warming plants, and heart medicine. Working with the heart and with trauma. And so that has been something that goes hand in hand. Bringing that warmth, that warmth into the body topically is also really important too. But yeah.
Thank you.
Oh my God, you just have a lot of questions. No, I don't have a libro de recetas yet, but I talked about it earlier, that it's in the making, it's in the work. And then someone's asking, well, would this help for women with endometriosis or other things? The atole, I mean, I can't say, I can't give you the science of how that would work, but I could tell you that I think that anything that you're going to have that's warming and with love is going to help with anything, So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Do you want to just talk about some of the other ingredients that might find their way, into this? Because there's so many beautiful possibilities.
Yes. I think another important plant ally is epazote. I still don't know what epazote is in English. If anybody does know, please let me know. I just know that both of my grandmas actually used it, and and the way that I've gotten to use it or get to know it is we put it in our, a lot of us use it in the culinary in the world, we put it in our beans, and it helps break down, all the husk, and so it helps with, that bloatedness or, the gas. But the way that it works too in our bodies, it also breaks down the mucus in our bodies, and so it breaks down that stagnation that we have. And usually when we're all mucusy, that's when we're all stagnant and sluggish. And so this plant has been super useful for me, and because it also makes food really tasty, but it's super medicinal. So you could add it to your salad, to your smoothies, your beans, or you can make a tea with it, or you can also make a tincture with it. There's different ways of consuming it, and this is just my, how it's helped me, and so I use it a lot because a lot of times when I see folks, clients, there is that, and it has a lot to do with diet, of course. People were consuming a lot of dairy, a lot of gluten, and then also like all all our mental health issues, that we have, all the trauma that we carry in our bodies, the way that we hold ourselves, So I really see this plant and how it works, and the way that it helps me is like really like clearing myself. It helps me clear, or I even feel more focused, and it helps with my digestion too. So people would have any indigestion or, I'm sorry? Yeah, and it's super easy to grow. So you could, it's super easy to grow. If you can find seeds, you can grow it, and it grows all year long. So yeah, that's it, tapiate. What are the other things? Gosh, I like to cook. I just do a lot of everything that I use is so special. So I could be here all day talking about food because that's just my dance that I do. But I think the what I really wanted to share and focus was the power of that prayer, and how we can change the alchemy of things, and the way we use our salt, the way that we could pray with our salt and connect with it. And when I went to the Indigenous birth gathering last year in Hawaii, I learned so many commonalities, that our relatives out there on the islands had, and the ways that they also hold so dearly this salt. It's so important to them and so ceremonial. I use another question. You could use for the atole, you could use blue cornmeal, any kind of cornmeal, pretty much, because it's just atole in Nahua just translates to like liquid corn. So there's different ways you can. There's ways of you nixtamalizing the corn, and when you nixtamalize it, you grind it, you make a masa, like a dough, and then you mix the dough a little bit in the water, and then you filter it, and then you pretty much all the starch, and then you thicken the water with the starch. And that was like the original way of doing it, and they would grind the corn on the metate. Now I'm a high tech Toltec. Okay, so yes, I said high tech Toltec. I have my handy dandy Vitamix, and my Vitamix is amazing. I'm not trying to be promoting it, but it is pretty great. So I throw my corn in there, and my dry corn kernels. I usually right now what I'm using is a Southern Ute corn that I got from my dear brother Carlos Vaca from Colorado. And so I throw my corn in there, and I grind it up, and it gets really nice. I even grind up my cinnamon because I love cinnamon. So I throw my cinnamon sticks in there, and then I toast it, and then I put it on my comal, and I toast it, on a pan, skillet, and toast it until it starts to smell like popcorn. It smells really, really good. And then that's what I use. That's my atole magic trick. The atole usually takes around like 20 minutes. Some depends on what kind of corn it is. Sometimes it's easier. Some people use like the cornmeal from the stores. It's a little bit more fine, and it's a little easier for the way that my Vitamix grades it. It usually takes around 25 minutes. But how's the atole looking over there? Yeah, it's nice. Oh, I think it's ready. I think it is. Okay, we have some. I think our atole is ready. Yeah, the oatmeal takes a lot. It doesn't take as long as the corn. The cornmeal takes a lot longer. For the cornmeal, it's like about 25 minutes. For the avena, it's usually around like 15 minutes. So from whatever time we started making the atole earlier, and now it's now ready.
Maybe it would be helpful if, now that you're just kind of sitting, that you just go from step 1 forward for making the atole, just so that we can have a review maybe.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
You just kind of do a step one forward of how to make the atole, just so that it's all in one stream.
Yes, okay. So this is for the oatmeal atole. So we use about 1 cup of ground oat flour. You could buy the oat flour, or you could just grind it in your blender. And I usually do it blended dry, or you can also blend it with your milk or water, however you like. I found that when I blend it with water or liquid with my almond milk, it gets really frothy. And I kind of didn't like that because that's not how my abuelita would make it. So I blend it dry. And then, so I have a cup of that. And I also put 3 cups or 3 tablespoons of sesame seeds. And I throw that also in the blender and blend it in with that. And so once I have my cinnamon tea that I make first, I'm going like, the steps are all, the first step is to make the cinnamon tea. And the cinnamon tea is 2 cups of water and 3 cinnamon sticks. And so I bring that to a boil, let it simmer for about 5 minutes. And then I turn it off and let it cool. Then once it's cool, I throw in another 4 cups of almond milk. And you could use either oat milk, almond milk, or you could just use water. And so in total of liquid, it's 6 cups. 6 cups to 1 cup of oat flour. Once all the liquid's in there, then I add the cup of oat flour, and then I mix it. And when you mix it, you have to stay mixing it so there's no clumps. You could either use a whisk or a molinillo. And so either or works. And then you just stay there until it gets nice and thick. And then about 15 minutes of stirring it, then you want to try it. You know, you just do the little taste test and you'll know if it's done or not. And then you add the sweetener that you like. You know, you could do honey. You could do maple syrup or sugar, you know, stevia. And I use about half a cup of piloncillo of brown sugar.
Is this something that you would potentially prepare for during labor and immediate postpartum, or something that you would just love on people with after the baby's born?
All of the above. Yeah, but definitely like immediately postpartum. But I always have it. I make it and take it to a birth, and so it's there. But I usually, you know, even prenatal like visits, you know, I'll, depending on the folks, you know, I'll take them some. Thank you. So here's like, I wish you guys could smell this. It smells so good. It's delicious.
Do you still have your mixes that you make? I know that you make the blends already made for purchase, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do have atole blends. I'm out of stock right now, but I'm in the process of making more because they're like high in demand right now.
Do you want to share how people could connect with them?
Yes, you can add me on Instagram at Mi Xantico. It's mi_Xantico on Instagram, and I usually, you know, will advertise when I have them in stock, and then people just, you know, message me directly and Venmo me, and I send me their address, and then I mail them off.
Are you using chocolate in any postpartum recipes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so in some of the atole packs that I have, some of them are made with cacao. Some of them have mesquite flour. Some of them are oat. I have about 4 different varieties, and they all could be used for any time, for postpartum, or, you know, just for family, for anybody. You know, I sell them year round because I think even in the hot summers when I was living in Arizona, I was drinking atole. But yes, chocolate is a must. It's like one of the important ingredients in life, I think. And also, if there's anything that you think of that doesn't come up now or later, you can always, you know, message me through Instagram or Facebook. You know, I'm more than happy to you know, to share
Sewa, I just wanted to share really quickly before we close up. Well, everything that you said has resonated a lot with me, and I think that for me personally, in my pregnancy and postpartum, I just learned, I think I learned I always have eaten kind of healthy, but I think at that time when you're so hyper aware of your body and your baby's well-being, that
Mm-hmm.
food just became so much more important to me. And especially with not just like physical well-being, but emotional well-being. And I think a lot of women experience like postpartum depression, or just kind of like a low energy, like estado de ánimo, you know? And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, chocolate was huge lifeline. Whenever I was feeling down, my midwife was just like, make hot chocolate with lots of something sweet. And for me, this last year has been especially hard, with a lot of loss. And so I think that lesson just stuck with me of when you're feeling down, like when you wake up in the morning and your glucose is low, you know, like on a biological level, just like a spoonful of honey or a banana or chocolate or something. And that has really been helpful to me to just kind of help like micromanage that like emotional well-being. So I think right now, especially during all over the world, is challenging with the virus and a lot of fear and things happening. So for me, that's been really helpful. And I appreciate how much you talk about just not so much like on a scientific level, like what it does to your body. I know that that exists and that's important, but more about like how it makes you feel, and that it can just be really comforting and loving. And in my experience personally, that's been fundamental. So thank you.
Mm, you're welcome. Thank you so much, Haley. I appreciate your reflections. And the food, food is, especially in the times, I think about it a lot, I think about the times that we're in. And I mean, my mental health has gone, from this level, it's like, and, I struggle every single day. I struggle. And I always turn back, like always, all right, well, what's the thing that I know how to do is like, okay, I'm going to feed myself. And if, even if I can't afford to eat some of the things, I can't buy these fancy, products or supplements, sometimes I'll be able to buy all these mushrooms and all these things. But one thing that I always have is my prayers and my spirituality, that's super important. And I just believe, that like really food is in our seeds, and that's really where the revolution starts, and it starts within ourselves, and the foods that we eat and how we can help ourselves, how we learn how to love ourselves. It's really hard sometimes. And for me, someone asked me yesterday, like, what do you eat when you're going through stuff, and what do you feed yourself to make yourself feel good, for you to heal? And I was like, damn, bro, I was like, I'm so good at like giving that to all folks, but then when it comes to myself, it's like, it's so hard, so I'm learning, I'm like, wow, I need to give myself that same medicine, that I give to other people. I like to give it to myself. So that's something that I'm processing, and I'm learning to nurture myself. And it's difficult, but it's very beautiful, and it's been very, very healing. It's a lot of that inner child work. And so me, going through this healing, and because now I have so much time to be at home, that's really where I feel like the radical change is how I'm going to be able to give back.
Hey, Sewa, it's Michaela.
Hey.
Hey, thanks so much for doing this. Glad to be here. It's good to see your face. Quick question. So, you know, I'm in rural Northern California. Like, we got a quarter of an aisle in my grocery store that says Mexican food on it. And so I got to drive like an hour and a half to get to a real market. And so I know that you are somewhat familiar with Bay Area, but I'm totally looking for like seed resources because I do have the ability to grow my own food. And that makes it a lot easier. So I have been building my, you know, medicine garden and food medicine garden for the last few years. And there's an heirloom corn farm in like Santa Rosa, which is 2.5, 3 hours away from me. And I'm not going to go down there. And I'm really feeling like I want to get seed from people more connected to where it's coming from instead of some well-minded permaculture white people in Santa Rosa. And that's cool that they're doing it, but I want some more connected seeds. So if you have any seed resources, like online ones, I would super appreciate you posting that in the comments, because I would love to take advantage of that, not only because I'm super far away from everyone, but also given the times, you know.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Michaela. Yeah, absolutely. I do have a few, and I will I'll either put in the comments or message you directly.
I would love.
I also like want to, like, I always encourage people, and I know like not everybody has that privilege to know where they come from or to like have access to their family or their lineage, but I always encourage people to at least if you could find out where your family come from, the state, and then do the research. What did your people eat? What did those people eat in that region? What are the staples of Sinaloa or Guatemala, you know, or wherever, you know? And even, you know, for, you know, people, even Europeans, you know, like study the foods that your ancestors, you know, had. And so I think really, for me, it's been really powerful to use the foods that all my grandmas, great grandmas, you know, have been using, because I know like it just helps me remember, you know, and it connects me directly to them.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I've been trying to do that for sure, and working on it. And I think that's a really huge and important piece. And so thank you for speaking to that.
And I'd also just like to add that there, in the group that I mentioned earlier, there was a list of indigenous seed companies. And so sometimes that just might be what is possible. And as more seed saving and seed sharing and, you know, more of this movement is gathering strength, there's going to be more and more of the ability to go direct and to find exactly what you're needing. But there was a really, really lovely database or list that had been put together. And I know that I shared it on the Canoe Journey Herbalists page, because we get requests a lot for plants and for seeds. And so I did share that post in there at the very least. And so in addition to whatever resources you're able to share, Sewa, I just wanted to say that people have gathered and vetted and found some good resources, and that's available.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's beautiful.
The 2 pages that were mentioned is the Canoe Journey Herbalists page. And we're a Coastal Salish project that is another half of me. And we grow a lot of plants and grow a lot of medicines for gifting and serving within Indigenous community. And so part of our work is helping to create gardens and grow gardens. And then also the other page that I mentioned was tribal sovereignty is food sovereignty. Wait, it's tribal and food, and sovereignty and sovereignty. Which order? I keep forgetting. But the documents and the videos and the links, that page is so hearty and full of so many amazing resources. So definitely take a look. You know, I'm on a lot of different groups and pages for food sovereignty work and seed saving and things like that. And I do feel like the collection of resources on that page is well worth taking a look.
Awesome. That's wonderful. Thank you, Rhonda.
How about we just have a closing blessing? I want to thank you. You're one of my favorite people, and you did a beautiful job today. So I really want to thank you. And yes, and I wish that I had that cup of atole that you have right in front of you, but I know it'll be there another day.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. I love you so much, and I appreciate you, and thank you for this opportunity. This is the first time I do something like this. I'm still trying to get used to this whole virtual thing, and I've never got to share all these stories like this. And so I just kind of opened up my heart and like just kind of let it flow. I didn't have a script. Just here with, you know, with my love, my humility, and just my experience, in hopes that it, you know, touches your hearts, it motivates you, inspires you, you know, because not everyone has, you know, not everyone had abuelitas to teach them, grandmas, you know, or sometimes like there's a lot of trauma, you know, even with food and in the kitchen, and people sometimes don't have that motivation. And so, you know, that was, for me, it was important to just to share that the power of, you know, of putting those intentions into our food, and how we can change the alchemy of things, and even in the, you know, if it's just in our salts and just our thoughts and our, you know, even singing a song. So yeah, so just, you know, thank you to each and every one of you for joining us today. I feel really grateful and really blessed, you know, to have shared this virtual space. And well, hopefully we all get to connect one day, or, you know, please keep in touch. And if there's anything that comes up, please, you know, feel free to message me. And then I look forward to my book, my recipe book coming out, and I hope y'all get to, you know, to get one. And it's to help me. I'm gonna fundraise to help my midwifery journey. So be on the lookout. Oh, Jennifer. So just also want to give thanks to Auntie Becky here and my sister Raquel. So just thank you, and thank you, you know, to all our all the energies, everything that helped conspire to have this space, to have this thought so we could share. And I'm just giving thanks to, you know, my relatives, my mom and my grandmas, my grandpas, everybody. Just a huge appreciation and gratitude for everybody, all of you. Muchas gracias.